currently our website has some styling applied to it, and it's starting to look more and more like the finished product will look and feel. So again, we've got all of that linking is working, so we're all ready to go to continue building out our styling. So let's open up our editors, and I'm going to open up that preview area here in the display area, and we're going to work predominantly with the CSS. So let's make that a little bit bigger, and the index, we may still need to reference to it, but for the most part the next set of lessons is going to be based around the CSS. So the first thing that I want to do is, actually I'm going to get rid of what we had there before, and what I want to do initially is I want to get rid of this this trigger here, this menu item. So I'm just going to go back up and see what we had called it, and I just want to display it as none. So I'll take that mini menu when the page loads, and I'm going to just apply a property to display as none. So this will hide it from the page when the page loads. The next item that I want to look at is the head. So maybe even we place the head above that, because the way that I like to create CSS is I want to start with how the elements are presented within my HTML page. So I want my CSS to roughly match that same order of presentation. So we've got our header is identified as header. So that's why I'm going to just use the ID value there. And what I want to do is I want to set some parameters for it, and I want to position it fixed and so on. So let's take a look at that. So first one I want to do is position and fixed. And what this is going to do, we see here right away that our position is fixed, and this gives us the ability to be able to access it even when we're down at the bottom. So even if I was to click home and then I click whatever, we're scrolled down to the bottom, but I still have the option to go back to home. And this is what we were talking about earlier, where we need to have a fixed position for this navigation menu and this whole heading area. So of course the logo does not need to necessarily be within a fixed position, but the way that it's been designed here is that it's nested within that main menu area, and so we're going to keep that as part of our fixed header section. So let's add in some additional styling properties here. So we need to have a background color, because the problem here is that we see the text underneath, and we definitely don't want to have that whenever we're creating our web page. So this eliminates that, and you can no longer see through it. And now when we've got our fixed position, when we scroll down, we can nice and easily read our headering area. So the next thing that I want to do is maybe set some default width for it, because I want it to go across that entire available space there. So I'm going to give it a width of 100 and also height, but I'm going to give it a set height size. And the reason for this is that I want to set it at around 80 pixels, because I want to be able to know where I need to position the menu when it shows up. Because I can't position the menu here at the top over the logo, and it's not going to work well on mobile. So this is the reason why we need to position it, and we need to give an actual pixel or an actual set height. And now this is just for positioning. So I'm going to set it at top 0 pixels. And this is where we can fix the position. So if I wanted it down a little bit and so on, I can move it around. And as you can see here, whenever I change those values here, it's actually changing its position. But I want it exactly at the top, and I want it exactly within that left corner there. So I don't want it moving around. I don't want it changing. I want it within that 0, 0 position, so that I always know where it is and I can always access it. And now looking at this, you're probably thinking, okay, well, now this navigation menu is not really fitting in well. But we are going to take care of that, I promise you, in the upcoming lesson. And I'm going to show you how to actually start styling this navigation menu. So one of the other things before we jump into that next section is I want to update, and speaking of sections, I want to finish off some styling for these sections. And we can see here that, well, whenever we click this whatever, because it's a smaller section, it's not taking up that whole entire page. So this is actually where some of the magic happens from a single page website, where we're actually going to set a minimum height, because I don't want this to be presented at less than maybe 1,000 pics. So we can do something like that. And we can see right away whenever I do that, now if I go to whatever, we're getting presented nice and neatly with every single page. We still need to make some adjustments, because now what's happening here is that we're actually hiding some of the content. So we are going to be fixing that as we progress through the lessons. Another thing that maybe we want to add is an overflow hidden. And what this will do is this will hide any content that might be hanging over. So sometimes maybe if you have really big images and you didn't resize them for mobile, they might hang over your section area, and this will actually hide it. I'm going to position it relative, because I want them all to be in relation to each other. So positioning it relative will pop it into place. Let me refresh that. And lastly, I want to add some padding at the top, because I do want to move it down, because now that we've positioned it relative, well, it's going on top of our menu area. And that's not what we want, because now we can no longer click that. So let's do padding top, and let's move it down 100 pics. So because we know that we're preset here at 80 pics for that, we know that whenever we're placing it, being shown so that we can actually see it. So one of the things here, now that I've positioned it relative, well, our heading area no longer is on top. So there's a number of different things we can do. We can change the vertical stacking by doing a z-index. And so I can set that to a higher index than the section, and that will show up automatically on top. So we can do that as well if we need to. And then this way, we're no longer overriding what's available there. So this is one way to do it. We could also get rid of that relative. So if we want to comment that out for now, so we don't necessarily maybe want to use the relative. So this is, again, maybe we want to do it this way, maybe we want to do it that way. So maybe there's some advantages and so on. So we're going to actually just comment this stuff out. And if we need it later on, then we've got it there and ready to go. So we don't necessarily need to set it as relative, because by default it's already stacking one on top of the other. And over here, the z-index, we might run into some issues here later on when we're resizing. So we want to be kind of cautious here before we set the z-index and before we set that position relative. So this is how we can set up our website and actually have the right container size and be ready to go with building out the rest of our content. So now I see that our navigation menu is working. And the next order of business is to style our navigation menu to actually look like a navigation menu. So that's coming up.